Have you ever wondered about the lengths people go to survive in the world's most impoverished nations? I mean, we've all seen the charity ads with the sad children and the promises to end poverty with just $1 a day. But what about the realities they don't show you in those 30-second appeals? Today, we're going to talk about something deeply uncomfortable, something that might make you shift uncomfortably in your seat. We're going to delve into the eye-opening realities of survival, where the line between desperation and dignity blurs. This is not a feel-good story. This is about the harsh, untold stories of older women in some of the world's poorest countries who are forced to sell themselves, their bodies, just to survive another day. Colombia. It conjures up images of lush rainforests, vibrant cities, and maybe even some questionable coffee choices. But beneath the surface of this seemingly idyllic nation lies a harsh reality, particularly for its most vulnerable population, older women. Imagine being a grandmother, someone who should be enjoying their twilight years surrounded by family. But instead, you're forced onto the streets, selling your body just to put food on the table. That's the reality for a growing number of older women in Colombia. The reasons are complex, a perfect storm of poverty, displacement, and a lack of social safety nets. Many of these women are from rural areas, forced to flee their homes due to conflict or lack of opportunities. They arrive in cities, often with little more than the clothes on their backs, only to find themselves invisible in the eyes of society. These aren't the young faces we typically associate with the sex trade. These are mothers, grandmothers, women who have lived full lives, now stripped of their dignity by a system that has failed them. They are forced to lurk in the shadows, their faces etched with a lifetime of hardship, their bodies bearing the weight of their invisible burdens. And the saddest part? Their stories often go unheard. Colombian society, grappling with its own demons of violence and inequality, often turns a blind eye to their plight. The government, while making some efforts, is often overwhelmed by the sheer scale of the problem. But amidst this bleak reality, there are glimmers of hope. Grassroots organizations, often run by the women themselves, are providing a lifeline. They offer everything from food and shelter to legal aid and psychological support. These organizations, often operating on shoestring budgets, are doing the work the government can't or won't, offering a glimmer of hope in a seemingly hopeless situation. It's a reminder that even in the darkest of circumstances, the human spirit, particularly that of these incredibly resilient women, can find a way to survive. But survival shouldn't be the goal. These women deserve more than just scraping by. They deserve dignity, respect, and a chance to live out their days with the security and peace they were denied for so long. The Philippines. We think of idyllic beaches, crystal clear waters, and a warm, welcoming culture. But behind this postcard-perfect facade lies a harsh truth, particularly for a segment of the population often overlooked: older women. Now, when we talk about the sex trade, it's easy to conjure up images that fit a certain narrative. But the reality in the Philippines is far more complex, far more heartbreaking. We're talking about grandmothers, women who should be enjoying their golden years, instead forced to sell their bodies just to put food on the table. Imagine for a moment having to choose between your dignity and your next meal. That's the gut-wrenching decision facing countless older women in the Philippines. Many are widows, their husbands lost to conflict, disease, or simply the harsh realities of poverty. They're left to care for grandchildren, their families relying on them, their burdens growing heavier with each passing day. And what options are they left with? The formal job market often shuts them out, ageism a very real and pervasive problem. Social safety nets, while improving, are often woefully inadequate. So, they're left with an impossible choice, a choice no one should ever have to make. They turn to the shadows, to the streets, to the very thing that would make most of us recoil in horror. They sell their bodies, not out of desire, but out of sheer desperation. They become invisible figures, their stories whispered in hushed tones, their plight ignored by a society that would rather look away. But amidst this bleak reality, there are glimmers of hope. Grassroots organizations, often run by the women themselves, are working tirelessly to provide a lifeline. They offer everything from skills training and microloans to healthcare and legal aid. They're empowering these women, giving them the tools to break free from the cycle of exploitation and build a better future for themselves and their families. It's a testament to the indomitable spirit of these women, their resilience in the face of unimaginable hardship. But it's also a stark reminder that we must not turn a blind eye to their plight. Venezuela. The name itself has become synonymous with economic collapse, political turmoil, and humanitarian crisis. We've all seen the headlines, the images of empty shelves, the stories of hyperinflation and mass exodus. But behind these stark headlines lies a human cost, a story often untold, a story of survival at its most desperate. This is the story of Venezuela's forgotten victims, the older women forced to the fringes of society, their lives upended by a crisis that seems to have no end. These are mothers, grandmothers, women who once held positions of respect, who raised families, who contributed to their communities. Now, they are reduced to selling their bodies just to survive. Imagine for a moment seeing your life savings wiped out overnight, your pension worthless, your country spiraling into chaos. This is the reality for countless older Venezuelans, their golden years tarnished by a crisis that has stripped them of their dignity, their security, their very sense of self. They are forced to make impossible choices, choices no one should ever have to make. They stand on street corners, their faces etched with a lifetime of hardship, their bodies bearing the weight of a nation's collapse. They become invisible figures, their stories lost in the cacophony of crisis, their plight ignored by a world seemingly numb to their suffering. And let's be clear, this isn't just about poverty, this is about a systemic failure, a breakdown of the social contract, a betrayal of the most vulnerable members of society. The government, crippled by sanctions and corruption, is unable or unwilling to provide for its people. The healthcare system is in shambles, pensions are worthless, food is scarce. But amidst this bleak landscape, there are glimmers of hope. Ordinary Venezuelans, fueled by a deep sense of solidarity and resilience, are stepping up to fill the void. They are organizing soup kitchens, providing medical care, offering a helping hand to those in need. And then, there are the women themselves, their spirits unbroken despite the hardships they face. They form support networks, sharing what little they have, offering each other comfort and strength in the face of adversity. They are a testament to the enduring power of the human spirit, a reminder that even in the darkest of times, hope can still flicker. Kenya. The name evokes images of sprawling savannas, majestic wildlife, and vibrant cultures. We think of safaris, of Maasai warriors, of a land teeming with life. But behind this idyllic facade lies another Kenya, a Kenya grappling with poverty, inequality, and a heartbreaking reality for many of its older women. This is the Kenya often unseen by tourists, a Kenya where survival is a daily struggle, where the line between dignity and desperation is blurred. This is the Kenya where grandmothers, the very matriarchs of their communities, are forced to sell their bodies not out of choice but out of sheer necessity. Imagine for a moment having to raise your grandchildren on a pension that barely covers the rent. Imagine having to choose between buying medicine and putting food on the table. This is the heartbreaking reality for countless older women in Kenya, their golden years tarnished by a system that has failed them. Many are widows, their husbands lost to AIDS, conflict, or simply the harsh realities of life in poverty. They are left to care for their grandchildren, their families relying on them, their burdens growing heavier with each passing day. The formal job market offers little respite. Ageism is rampant and opportunities for older women are scarce. Social safety nets, while improving, are often inadequate, leaving many teetering on the brink of destitution. So they turn to the shadows, to the streets, to the very thing that would make most of us recoil in horror. They sell their bodies not out of desire but out of sheer desperation. They become invisible figures, their stories whispered in hushed tones, their plight ignored by a society that would rather look away. But amidst this bleak reality, there are glimmers of hope. Grassroots organizations, often run by the women themselves, are working tirelessly to provide a lifeline. They offer everything from skills training and microloans to healthcare and legal aid. They are empowering these women, giving them the tools to break free from the cycle of exploitation and build a better future for themselves and their families. It's a testament to the indomitable spirit of these women, their resilience in the face of unimaginable hardship. But it's also a stark reminder that we must not, turn a blind eye to their plight. These are not just statistics, not just faceless victims. These are mothers, grandmothers, women who deserve our respect, our compassion, and our support. We've journeyed across the globe today, shining a light on a side of humanity most would rather ignore. We've seen the raw, unfiltered reality of survival, where desperation pushes people to unimaginable lengths. But amidst the despair, we've also witnessed the incredible strength of the human spirit. We've seen how even in the face of unimaginable adversity, hope can still flicker. We've seen the resilience of these women, their determination to provide for their families, their refusal to be defined by their circumstances. Let their stories stay with you. Let them be a reminder that the world is a complex and often unfair place. But most importantly, let them be a call to action. Educate yourselves, support organizations working on the ground, and amplify the voices of those who are too often silenced.